Um, Imagine plugging a medium-sized city into the electrical grid, right?
Okay.
But instead of powering, hospitals or schools or millions of homes, every single watt is just funneled into a single massive warehouse.
Oh, wow. Just one building.
Yeah, exactly. And it's doing nothing but training a piece of software. I mean, that is what a 1.5 gigawatt AI server cluster actually looks like.
That's almost hard to wrap your head around.
Right. And it's just one piece of a world that feels completely strained at the seams right now. So, welcome to today's deep dive. I am so glad you're joining us. Today we are opening up a stack of sources from the Daily Tech Reader for Sunday, July 5, 2026.
And really, the overarching theme in these reports is just massive simultaneous friction. We're seeing structural stress tests across, well, almost every sector of society all at once.
Yeah, we're going to cover everything from a literal and political thunderstorm disrupting the America 250 celebrations to a staggering $510 billion AI gold rush.
Billion with a B.
Exactly. Plus some medical breakthroughs that are completely rewriting the textbooks on human health. Our mission today is to cut through the absolute avalanche of information you are bombarded with.
Because there's just so much noise out there right now.
So much noise. We want to find the hidden mechanisms driving the news, connecting the dots between those gigawatts of AI power and the imminent death of the physical video game disc.
Because when you look past the headlines and examine the actual mechanisms, how these things function under the surface, the through line becomes remarkably clear.
Yeah, but before we jump into those mechanisms, a critical note for you listening. Our sources today contain highly politically charged material.
Yes, very important to mention.
Right, it covers both left-wing and right-wing figures and actions. And we want to make it absolutely clear that we are not endorsing any of the viewpoints or the rhetoric in these sources.
Not at all.
We are strictly here to impartially report the events and convey the ideas exactly as they were documented in the original material.
Right, because understanding the landscape requires total neutrality. And our goal is to dissect the facts, not, participate in the partisanship.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the nation's 250th birthday. The America 250 celebrations this weekend were supposed to be this unifying milestone.
But it didn't quite turn out that way.
No, the sources paint a picture of an event completely derailed by both physical weather and intense political firestorms. Down on the National Mall, President Trump's massive address was delayed by nearly 2 hours.
Just because of the severe thunderstorms rolling through the Capitol, right?
Exactly. And that weather system caused logistical chaos far beyond D.C.
Oh, absolutely. Boston actually had to sound evacuation sirens to clear spectators from the Esplanade before their fireworks could even resume.
Wow, sirens.
Yeah, it was that bad. Further south, Hartford, Harrisburg, and Wilkes-Barre just outright canceled their July 4th events because it simply wasn't safe to gather. Even Pittsburgh was forced into a major schedule shift.
I mean, nature clearly had its own agenda there. But when the skies finally cleared over Washington, the political temperature immediately spiked.
Yeah, it really did.
Trump eventually took the stage for what he called a joyous and glorious occasion, but he quickly pivoted into heavy campaign rhetoric.
According to the reports, he made a pretty major claim, right?
He did. He claimed that the U.S. had completely wiped out Iran's military. He also aggressively pushed for the passage of the Save America Act, that's the controversial voter ID bill, and went on a sustained attack against progressive Democrats.
Which, naturally, triggered an immediate institutional backlash.
Oh, yeah.
Former President Bill Clinton issued a public statement blasting Trump over the divisive nature of the rhetoric, especially on a national holiday. And the friction went deeper than just words, though.
Right, the boycotts.
Exactly. Several Democratic-led states effectively boycotted the Washington Freedom 250 events, refusing to send official delegations. We even saw several high-profile performers withdraw from the schedule at the last minute, specifically citing the overt partisanship.
And the friction even spilled over into physical vandalism. The Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool was vandalized during all this chaos.
Yeah, I read that.
Trump actually posted on social media demanding the immediate arrest of the suspect, and he made a very pointed note to tell his followers that the pool has been cleaned and is now crystal clear again.
Right.
But I want to pivot to a different kind of mess, because the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, just hit a bizarre bureaucratic wall.
Ah, yes, the July 4th sunset deadline.
Right. The executive order mandated that the DOGE commission wrap up on July 4th. But here's the part I really need help understanding. The commission just ended without any formal wind-down order.
Just stopped entirely.
Yeah. They have triggered thousands of federal layoffs over the past year. They've voided billions of dollars in active government contracts. And now the lights are just off.
Right.
It feels like ripping the steering wheel out of a moving car and just hoping the vehicle magically coasts to a safe stop. I mean, if billions in contracts are in limbo, who exactly goes into the office on Monday to manage the fallout?
Nobody does. And that is the terrifying part of administrative vacuums. Without a transition framework, those voided contracts enter immediate litigation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and federal agencies lose the authority to process payments or rehire essential staff. But if you step back, you see how this bureaucratic paralysis mirrors the physical gridlock we saw with the weather.
How so?
Well, historic national milestones often act as magnifying glasses for underlying institutional fractures. The system, whether it's the physical infrastructure struggling against a storm or the political apparatus failing to execute a basic administrative sunset, it's struggling to process the immense weight of the moment.
That makes total sense. And the idea of institutional fractures brings us directly to the international stage, because Trump's claim at the rally about wiping out Iran's military is crashing headfirst into the reality on the ground in the Middle East right now.
The situation in Tehran is incredibly volatile.
It is. Iran is currently in the second day of massive state funerals for their supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He was killed back in February by U.S.-Israeli strike.
Right.
The imagery coming out of the sources is intense. Massive crowds filling the streets, openly chanting for revenge.
And this creates an absolute nightmare for the ongoing U.S.-Iran nuclear talks.
I can imagine.
You have indirect diplomatic channels attempting to establish a baseline for peace, while the domestic population of one of the negotiating parties is actively demanding retaliation.
And simultaneously, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is publicly denying any rift with Trump. He's insisting that Israel and the U.S. are moving in lockstep on their Iran policy.
Yes.
But honestly, how does this work in practice? How do diplomats sit in a quiet room in Geneva or Vienna and conduct nuanced negotiations about uranium enrichment when millions of people are literally out in the streets demanding blood?
It requires diplomats to operate in a state of cognitive dissonance, really. They have to completely wall off the public theater, the fiery rhetoric that leaders use to pacify their domestic base, from the cold mathematical calculus of international survival.
That sounds almost impossible.
It's incredibly difficult. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's fascinating to look at what forces nations to drop that posturing. Because right now in Venezuela, geopolitics have completely vanished from the priority list.
Because of the twin earthquakes, the satellite imagery from NASA is just devastating.
It really is.
They are tracking over 58,000 structures damaged or completely destroyed along the La Guaira coastline right near Caracas. This was a 7.2 magnitude quake, followed immediately by a 7.5. And the death toll is nearing 2,000 people.
It's a tragedy. And when a natural disaster reaches that scale, the international order shifts instantaneously. Ideological enemies suddenly find themselves coordinating cargo flights of medical supplies.
Right.
Natural disasters force an abrupt, non-negotiable shift in global priorities, exposing how fragile our human-made political crises really are when measured against the sheer geological power of the planet.
Speaking of raw power, we are watching a different kind of seismic shift happen in the technology sector. World leaders are gathering to try and figure out how to control a force that might rival those earthquakes in its global impact.
The UN Global Dialogue on AI Governance, it opens on Monday in Geneva.
And their agenda is massive. They are tackling AI-generated misinformation, rapid labor disruption, but most importantly, the intense concentration of power. And the financial numbers explain exactly why the UN is panicking.
Oh, the numbers are staggering.
Global venture capital funding for the first half of 2026 just shattered records. It hit $510 billion.
Over $500 billion in 6 months.
Yeah. But here's the unbelievable part. OpenAI and Anthropic alone took 43% of that money.
Two single entities capturing almost half the world's speculative capital. That is not a competitive market. That is the formation of a duopoly.
And they're deploying that capital fast. OpenAI just officially confirmed their GPT 5.6 lineup. It has 3 tiers.
Right, the Sol, Terra, and Luna.
Yeah. Exactly. Sol's is their flagship, hitting 91.9% on Terminal Bench 2.1. It costs $5 per million input tokens, but a massive $30 per million output tokens.
Quite a jump.
Yeah. Then there's Terra, which matches the old GPT 5.5 performance for half the cost, so that's $2.50 and $15 out. And finally, Luna, the cheapest peer.
You know, those pricing structures reveal a lot about the actual physics of AI. We often throw the word tokens around, but it's vital to understand what that means.
Yeah, break that down for us.
A token is roughly 3/4 of a word. When you feed a prompt into an AI, the input tokens, the system can read and process that data in parallel. It's relatively cheap.
Okay.
But generating an answer, the output tokens, requires the model to run its entire multi-trillion parameter neural network forward sequentially for every single new word it writes. That requires exponentially more compute power, which is why output costs 6 times as much.
That explains the massive energy drain, and the benchmarks are getting insane, too. You mentioned Terminal Bench 2.1.
Yeah.
This isn't just an AI answering multiple-choice trivia questions anymore. This benchmark tests whether the AI can operate a computer terminal, write code, debug errors, and execute complex software engineering tasks autonomously over hours.
It's a massive leap in capability.
Yeah. Hitting nearly 92% means Sol is essentially functioning as an autonomous senior developer.
Which is exactly why the corporate integration is accelerating. Anthropic just launched Claude Science Beta, providing over 60 pre-built tools specifically engineered for pharmaceutical drug discovery and mapping neglected diseases.
Wow.
Microsoft is so invested they just launched the Frontier Company, a $2.5 billion initiative that drops 6,000 of their own engineers directly into the offices of their enterprise clients to build custom AI infrastructure.
That's huge.
And Google is pushing Gemini Spark directly into macOS, hardwiring it into Canva, Dropbox, and Zillow.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, though. We have to talk about xAI's Grok 5. It's delayed past Q3, and Polymarket only gives it a 3% chance of a June release.
Yeah, the odds aren't good.
But the bottleneck isn't the software, it's the physical world. It's currently training on the Colossus 2 cluster, which is pulling 1.5 gigawatts of power.
Which is just an unfathomable amount of electricity.
I was trying to find an analogy for this, and it's not just a digital black hole. It's like building a massive aluminum smelter. The raw material, the data is practically free, but the blinding, astronomical amount of electricity required to forge that data into intelligence is where the entire industry is bottlenecking.
And that infrastructure bottleneck is highly vulnerable to the physical environment.
Exactly. Look at the weather data in the sources today. Down in Dallas-Fort Worth, where a massive amount of Texas server infrastructure lives, it is hitting 99 degrees with a muggy 76-degree overnight low and afternoon thunderstorms.
Ouch.
How do you physically cool a 1.5 gigawatt server farm when the ambient air temperature outside is pushing 100 degrees? The water and air conditioning demands alone are catastrophic.
And this is exactly why the UN is convening. When two companies command 43% of $500 billion and their competitors are consuming gigawatts of national grid capacity, we are watching the formation of nation-state level corporate monopolies.
Nation-state level, yeah.
They command resources, physical infrastructure, and energy grids on a scale that traditionally only sovereign countries controlled. The UN realizes that traditional regulatory frameworks simply do not have the leverage to govern entities of this mass.
And we are seeing that survival by mass strategy play out in legacy industries too. Traditional media and logistics companies are radically reshaping themselves just to survive the economic anxiety this tech shift is causing.
Corporate defensive maneuvering, basically.
Look at Paramount. They just officially acquired Warner Bros. Discovery for $110 billion, paying $31 a share in cash, beating out Netflix. They expect it to close in Q3 of this year.
A massive merger.
Right. But I have to ask you, though, does mashing 2-century-old massive legacy media companies together actually result in a better movie or streaming app for the listener? Or is this just two giants clinging to each other to avoid drowning in the AI era?
It is entirely the latter. This is not about synergistic creativity. It is about hoarding sheer mass.
Just mass.
Exactly. In an era where AI can generate infinite content, legacy studios believe their only defense is monopolizing iconic, human-created intellectual property. They are building a fortress of copyright.
That makes a lot of sense.
And you see this defensive retreat in logistics, too. FedEx just sold its entire logistics arm for $1.4 billion to a French shipping conglomerate. They are shrinking their footprint to focus strictly on their core parcel delivery business.
Because the broader economic realities they are operating in are just completely chaotic.
Schizophrenic is the best word for it. Monday morning, the Dow is set to open at a record high of 52,900. But the Nasdaq is sliding because of volatility in the semiconductor chip sector. And beneath those stock numbers, the actual foundation of the economy is shaking. The June jobs report missed expectations by a catastrophic margin.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Economists expected 185,000 new jobs. The economy only added 57,000.
130,000 job miss is not a rounding error. That is a massive freeze in hiring.
And it's a freeze caused directly by regulatory chaos. Look at the Section 122 tariff situation.
Oh, right.
This is a 10% blanket tariff on imported goods that was scheduled to expire on July 24th. However, a U.S. Court of International Trade ruling back in May declared that the administration actually exceeded its authority in levying it.
So nobody knows what's happening.
Total paralysis. Corporate importers don't know if the tariff is ending, if they owe back taxes, or if they're getting billions in refunds. When corporations face that level of legal uncertainty in their supply chains, they freeze all capital expenditure. They stop hiring. Hence, the massive jobs miss.
The dread is palpable. Even the video game industry is bracing for a new reality. Sony just announced that by January 2028, the PlayStation platform is going 100% digital only. They are permanently killing physical game discs at retail. Everything moves to the cloud.
Which rewrites the entire concept of consumer ownership. You no longer own the game, you merely lease access to a license on Sony servers.
But amid all this heavy corporate consolidation and political friction, our sources also highlight some truly incredible wins in the medical and scientific sectors. Discoveries that are fundamentally altering our understanding of human health.
Yes, let's look at the oncology breakthrough from ETH Zurich.
But this one blew my mind. Scientists there have created a light-controlled molecular switch that can actually wake up dormant, treatment-resistant cancer cells so they can be destroyed. But how does light actually flip a switch inside a human body?
It's a field called photopharmacology.
Okay.
The researchers engineered specialized molecules, often based on isobenzenes, that physically change their shape when exposed to very specific wavelengths of light.
Wait, they physically change shape?
Yes. Doctors can inject an inactive chemotherapy agent into the bloodstream. It circulates harmlessly, avoiding the massive systemic toxicity of traditional chemo. Then, using a highly targeted fiber optic laser at the exact site of the tumor, they pulse the light.
Oh, wow.
The molecule snaps into its active shape, waking up the dormant cancer cells and releasing the toxin only exactly where it is needed.
That is incredible. It's like a literal sleeper agent spy for cancer cells that are trying to hide in dormancy. And speaking of rewriting the rules, the stroke study out of UCLA is completely overturning decades of medical dogma.
It changes the entire preventative playbook. For over half a century, the medical consensus was that this common type of stroke was fundamentally a plumbing problem, fatty arterial plaque building up and clogging the pipes in the brain.
But the UCLA researchers found something entirely different. They discovered that the strongest predictor for these strokes is actually enlarged, damaged, small blood vessels deep inside the brain. Not plaque, so why does that matter?
What's fascinating here is that treating a clogged pipe is vastly different from treating a structurally compromised pipe.
Right.
If we assume plaque is the culprit, doctors prescribe aggressive statins and cholesterol-lowering drugs.
Yeah.
But if the root cause is actually the structural integrity of the small vessels, vessels that are stretching, stiffening, and taking microdamage over time, then statins won't stop the stroke.
So we've been using the wrong treatments.
In many cases, yes. The entire medical field will have to pivot toward aggressively managing blood pressure variants and vessel elasticity earlier in life. It renders the old prevention strategy effectively obsolete.
That is going to save countless lives. And we also got a massive win in neurology regarding sleep. Scientists finally mapped the exact neural feedback loop that links deep, slow-wave sleep directly to the release of growth hormone in the body.
That's a huge missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, we've always known sleep was important, but now we literally have the wiring diagram explaining why failing to get deep sleep accelerates age-related hormonal decline.
And, from the microscopic wiring of the brain, we can also zoom out to the absolute macro scale of the universe.
Oh, absolutely. NASA released some stunning new images from the Hubble Space Telescope as part of their America 250 tribute.
The ones in Messier 3.
Yes. They captured Messier 3, this ancient globular cluster that holds over 500,000 stars tightly bound by gravity. They also released imagery of LH95, a chaotic star-forming region in a neighboring galaxy where over 2,500 young protostars are actively devouring surrounding gas clouds.
Seeing cosmic forces on that scale provides a necessary perspective shift. The gravity shaping those protostars is the same fundamental force governing the physics of our own planet.
And speaking of physical forces governing us, let's bring our focus all the way back down to Earth, specifically to the pitch. Because right now, the entire globe is coming together for the World Cup round of 16.
It's the ultimate intersection of physics, culture, and macro-level national identity.
Truly. Over at MetLife Stadium, the Brazil versus Norway match is currently underway. And in the 12th minute, we got absolute theater.
Oh, the penalty save.
Yes. Norway's goalkeeper stopped a penalty kick from Brazil's Bruno Guimarães. And this was a VAR-awarded penalty, meaning the video assistant referee stopped the real-time flow of the game, reviewed the footage, and awarded the shot.
The tension must have been unbelievable.
The sheer drama of using instant replay to give the five-time champions an early advantage, only for the Norwegian keeper to deny them anyway, it is electric.
And tonight, the cultural weight is going to be even heavier down in Mexico City.
Mexico is hosting England at the iconic Azteca Stadium.
And you have to understand the historical and cultural significance here. Mexico has not conceded a single goal in this entire tournament. They have a flawless defensive record.
That's amazing.
Right. So defending that perfection on home soil inside the legendary high-altitude cauldron of the Azteca against a European powerhouse like England, that is the kind of immense pressure that defines generations of sports fans.
And the winner punches their ticket to Miami for the quarterfinals. The bracket is already taking shape. Morocco is through after eliminating Canada 3-0, and France squeezed by Paraguay 1-0 thanks to an Mbappe penalty.
Some great matches so far.
Looking ahead to Monday, the U.S. men's national team faces Belgium in Seattle. Folarin Balogun had his red card overturned by a FIFA appeals panel, so he is cleared to play, and the U.S. is actually walking in as slight favorites.
And Monday also gives us a massive Iberian derby, with Portugal facing off against Spain at AT&T Stadium in Arlington.
An absolutely massive slate of matches ahead. And that brings us to the bottom of our stack of sources for today. We've covered a wild swing of human experience.
We really have.
From stormy, polarized political gridlock in Washington to the UN desperately trying to regulate AI models, demanding 1.5 gigawatts of power, legacy media giants merging for survival, and medical textbooks being completely rewritten from the ground up.
It is an immense amount of systemic change to process all at once.
So, what does this all mean? We've examined the pieces, we've looked at the underlying mechanisms, but how do they ultimately fit together?
Well, if we look closely at the threads we've pulled today, there is a massive underlying tension that society hasn't resolved yet. Think about the announcements. By January 2028, Sony kills off physical PlayStation discs. Everything goes to the cloud.
Huh.
Combine that with OpenAI and Anthropic capturing nearly half of all global venture capital to build superintelligences housed in remote servers, and combine it with Grok pulling 1.5 gigawatts of physical electrical power just to train a single model.
It's like our entire culture is becoming untethered from physical media and moving into digital data centers.
Precisely. As our entertainment, our corporate structures, our scientific tools, and our collective knowledge become entirely digital and centralized in a few massive facilities, what happens to our society if the physical infrastructure fails us? Because this weekend we saw literal physical storms disrupt the National Mall and paralyze the Capitol. We saw massive earthquakes devastate Venezuela's physical infrastructure. The thought I want you to ponder is this. As we rush to build this pristine, omnipotent digital utopia, are we fully realizing that its entire existence is completely and precariously at the mercy of the physical element?
If the power grid buckles under the weight or the storms roll in, does the entire culture go dark with it? That is a haunting thought to leave on. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep looking for the hidden connections, keep questioning the world around you, and we will catch you next time.